I'm going to be showing you how to make a drawing of a complex set of contours, and I cut this pepper in half. You'll be cutting a vegetable or fruit so that you have multiple parts that are have to be assembled together in one drawing. And I'm kind of putting these together in a composition I like. And then I'm going to be using these tools, my 4B pencil, my white vinyl eraser, kneaded eraser, sharpener, and a skewer. Now, if you don't have a skewer, you can just use another pencil or even a stump, something straight, to test different angles. I like skewers because they're thin and easy to use and long, so I can test long areas. You could also use like the side of something else long and thin, but it has to be kind of straight. So what we're going to be doing is creating a bounding polygon construction lines, and then using simplified forms to create these shapes that we see in either straight lines or circles to help define our form. And then we're going to look for other things like negative space, and we're going to try to judge some distances between things and look for any intersections that we might see that could give us some information. So you have a different angle for these peppers than I do, but I'm going to start by doing a bounding polygon based on what I see. And how I do that is I'm going to hold my skewer up, or you can even look at it from far as long as you close one eye. And I'm going to draw the same angle that I see. I'm connecting everything in a polygon. Around this and testing the angles. So I notice that there are points that I can connect here, and I'm calling these points of change. It's where a form changes from one direction to another. And this is the outermost edge here of the pepper that I see, and this here is the outermost edge of the pepper that I see. But then there's some other shapes behind it. So I'm just going to connect these two top points of change, and then I can draw also the ones behind it. So my bounding polygon is this boundary that I'm drawing here. And you can think of it as, if you are used to computer programs, like the outermost edge of selecting something, it creates points and lines between the outermost edge of things. So now I will create some construction lines, and this actually was a construction line right here. Construction lines connect things from point to point and give you information. For example, I don't really know if this angle here relates to this angle here, but I can take a line and connect it, and wow, I see that was really accurate. So that means that this point of change and this point of change, they are related in an angle, and if I keep it the same, it looks the same. So I can also test for any other point of change that I see. So I also see, for example, I want to figure out where the middle of this is, where the two shapes are divided. So I can actually, I'm going to create a mark right here and over here and test between those 2 points. So that's going to tell me where the edge of that pepper right here hits the paper. So that's a construction line that's useful in that way. So then I can also create another. I notice that this has an angle, and I can use that angle in my drawing. and then connect the pepper here. So one pepper lives here. The other pepper lives over here somewhere. And I can figure out some more things. So, for example, I want to figure out where does this pepper change shape down here, and I'm going to use this connected to this point here and draw a line. So this is the bottom angle of this pepper. So I've kind of figured out that the middle of the pepper is where I see like there's a hole. Maybe you can't see it from your angle. So that's approximately the middle of the pepper. So I can do a construction line, just draw it across the middle. And same with the middle of this pepper, like figure out where the middle is. The middle point is there. All right, so that can help me a little bit because the pepper has some curves at the middle point. So I can either use curves or straight lines now to figure out how this pepper is shaped, keeping the forms very simple at first. I might use straight lines actually a lot because straight lines are easier to draw for most people, not everybody, and sometimes people go through stages. I used to find that curves were better for me and circles when I was initially drawing, and then I switched to straight lines and found that they were easier, particularly when drawing very complex things such as the figure. But if you feel that circles would be better for you, then by all means you can use circles. So for example, there's kind of a circular shape here. I can draw through that circular shape. Or maybe there's like a circle here for this curve that I want to define. So that's the midpoint. There's a circular opening, so I could draw that as an oval. And if you make a curve, try to make it with a circle so that it gives some sense of structure to things. But avoid drawing things too complex at this point. You're simplifying. So anytime you draw something that is complex, you want to keep things real simple at first, because otherwise it's really easy to get confused and lost and not know where things are and get really frustrated. So I have basically now a sketch of my pepper, and I'm just going to clean up a little bit so I can see where I am. Don't erase the bounding polygon. Don't erase the straight lines or the simplified forms, because I want to see that in your work, because those things are incredibly useful and powerful and will help you in the future. So I see some things that are off, and I'm judging distances, like how far is this? There's like an internal pepper shape here, and I'm like, oh, that pepper shape is actually closer to the stem than I realized. So that's called judging distances, like seeing where things are in space. Now these are kind of triangular shapes here. So I judge that this distance would need to be a little bit closer. But I also can see that this area seems too wide. So maybe it needs to be narrowed down. So negative space. There's actually space I see between these two peppers. Looking at this space, and even you can shade in this space if you wish, will help you to figure out things with your drawing. And I can see here clearly that this needs to actually go in here to get the negative space right. There's also a small space between the two, and then it goes back in. So drawing this negative space in here, or at least visualizing it, can help you to see the forms a little more clearly. So in these drawings for me, if you see negative space between your forms, please try to draw that negative space, because I think that'll help you in the long run. Looking at the negative space. And also, you want your bounding polygon. You want your construction lines that were used from point to point. You want simplified forms, either straight or circles. And I did judge some distances to see which things are kind of closer or further away. You'll be doing that anyway. Intersections is the last thing I kind of mentioned. This is where things intersect, they cross. And for example, let's see, what can I find an intersection? In my view, because I have this pepper and I see that there's a back, it hits the front here, and there's an area where it intersects with the front. And let's see if I can put this back accurately. And then I can look here and I can see, where does that intersect? Where does this point change? Right here. Like, where do I see the back of this pepper intersecting with this front part? And it's about here. So that's an intersection. And that can give me some information about where things are. And you really don't need to make your pepper any more than your peppers, or whatever it is that you're drawing, any more complex than this. You're going to be cutting up some fruit or vegetables. I just want to see that you can do some simplified forms and that you can use construction lines and a bounding polygon. All right, so that's about it.